The telephones wouldn't stop ringing. Smoke was already rising over the Philippine airfields. Pilots ran toward aircraft that would never leave the ground. Mechanics froze, looking up as enemy bombers emerged through the afternoon sky. Then came the explosions. One after another, hangars disappeared into fire. Runways twisted beneath collapsing aircraft. Within minutes, General Douglas MacArthur had lost the one advantage he needed to defend the Philippines. The most haunting question of his career had just been born. How did the commander who knew Pearl Harbor had already been attacked still lose most of his air force on the ground? It is a question historians have debated for more than 80 years, and the answer is far more complicated than legend suggests. December 8, 1941, because the Philippines lay west of Hawaii, the attack on Pearl Harbor had already happened. News reached Manila before Japanese bombers appeared overhead. There was time, not much, but enough to act. MacArthur's headquarters received confirmation that American forces at Pearl Harbor had been devastated. War had begun. Across the Philippines, commanders waited for orders. The Far East Air Force, commanded by Major General Lewis Brereton, possessed one of America's largest concentrations of aircraft outside the continental United States. Its greatest strength was the B-17 Flying Fortress, long-range bombers capable of striking Japanese bases on Formosa, modern-day Taiwan. Brereton believed every minute mattered. He repeatedly requested permission to launch an immediate attack before Japanese aircraft could take off. His requests moved through headquarters. The answer never came. Exactly what happened inside MacArthur's headquarters remains one of the most disputed episodes of the Pacific War. Official reports, personal memoirs, and later investigations often contradict one another. Some accounts suggest MacArthur hesitated while assessing incomplete intelligence. Others point to confusion inside the chain of command. Brereton later recalled struggling for hours to secure authorization. What is certain is that precious time slipped away. Instead of launching immediately, many American aircraft remained on the ground or returned to refuel after patrols. The opportunity to strike first had vanished. The Japanese did not waste theirs. Shortly after noon, waves of Japanese bombers and fighters swept over Clark Field, America's largest air base in the Philippines. The timing was devastating. Many American aircraft had landed only minutes earlier to refuel and rearm. They stood wingtip to wingtip along the runways. Perfect targets. Bombs ripped through parked bombers. Fighters burst into flames before their engines could even start. Pilots who survived watched helplessly as months of preparation disappeared in less than an hour. Other airfields suffered similar attacks. By the end of the day, much of the Far East Air Force had been destroyed or crippled. Japan now controlled the skies over the Philippines. That single fact changed everything. Without air superiority, every American position became vulnerable. Japanese transports crossed the sea with increasing confidence. Ground forces landed across Luzon. Supply routes became exposed. Reinforcements became nearly impossible. MacArthur understood the consequences immediately. The original defense strategy had collapsed. He activated War Plan Orange, abandoning attempts to defend the entire archipelago. American and Filipino forces began withdrawing toward the Bataan Peninsula. It was a plan created years before the war. Hold Bataan, delay the enemy, wait for the U.S. Pacific Fleet to arrive. There was only one problem. After Pearl Harbor, no rescue fleet was coming. Inside Tokyo, Japanese commanders recognized the opportunity. The destruction of American air power had opened the door for the invasion they had carefully planned. Within weeks, Manila fell. American and Filipino forces continued their retreat toward Bataan. The campaign that followed would become one of the most desperate defenses of the Second World War. But the shadow of December 8th never disappeared. Could the disaster have been avoided? Did MacArthur make a fatal mistake? Or was he facing an impossible situation that no commander could have changed? For decades, military historians have searched through war diaries, official investigations, eyewitness testimony, and declassified records looking for the answer. What they found does not point to one simple failure. It reveals something far more unsettling. Because the greatest defeats in history are rarely caused by a single decision, They are born from minutes of hesitation, confusion, and opportunities that never return. And for Douglas MacArthur, those lost hours will haunt the rest of his life. By January 1942, the Philippines were slipping away. Japanese troops advanced almost unchecked. American and Filipino forces fell back into the jungles of Bataan, where disease, hunger, and exhaustion would soon become deadlier than enemy bullets. But while soldiers fought for survival, another battle had already begun, the battle over blame. Who was responsible for the destruction of America's air power in the Philippines? And could Douglas MacArthur have prevented it? Within weeks of the disaster, investigations began. Reports flowed into Washington. Commanders defended their decisions. Memories conflicted. Even today, historians continue to debate exactly what happened during those critical hours on December 8th. Some pointed directly at MacArthur. He had several hours of warning after Pearl Harbor. Why weren't the bombers already airborne? Why wasn't the attack on Japanese airfields launched immediately? Those questions have never completely disappeared. Others argue the situation was far more complicated. Weather delayed Japanese aircraft leaving Formosa. American commanders believed they had more time than they actually did. Communications moved slowly. Radar coverage was limited. Conflicting intelligence created uncertainty, and uncertainty has destroyed armies throughout history. One fact, however, remained beyond dispute. The Far East Air Force was caught at exactly the wrong moment. Bombers had returned to refuel. Fighters were scattered across airfields. Crews were preparing for missions that never happened. When the Japanese attack arrived, the aircraft were exposed. Within a matter of minutes, America's striking power in the Philippines had been shattered. The loss echoed through every battle that followed. Without air cover, Japanese landings became easier. American supply lines grew more vulnerable. Defenders on Bataan became increasingly isolated. Every hardship they would endure could be traced, in part, to those first devastating hours of the war. Yet history often asks the wrong question. Instead of asking whether MacArthur made mistakes, perhaps the better question is whether any commander could have saved the Philippines. The strategic reality was brutal. Japan controlled the initiative. Its forces had spent months rehearsing the invasion. The United States had underestimated both Japan's capabilities and the speed of its offensive. Even if more American aircraft had survived the first day, they still faced overwhelming numerical superiority, fuel shortages, limited spare parts, and an enemy controlling nearby bases. The destruction on December 8th accelerated defeat. It did not create the larger strategic imbalance. Moments like these reshape history forever. If you value documentaries built on documented evidence rather than popular myths, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, the final judgment. The criticism followed MacArthur for the rest of his life. Some historians viewed December 8th as an avoidable command failure. Others argued he inherited an impossible mission with inadequate resources and unrealistic expectations. Even official investigations never produced a single, universally accepted explanation. Perhaps that uncertainty is the real lesson. History is rarely as simple as heroes and villains. Great commanders make mistakes. Governments make mistakes. Intelligence fails. Communications fail. And sometimes, a few lost hours become impossible to recover. MacArthur would rebuild his reputation. He would oversee the defense of Australia. He would fulfill his promise to return to the Philippines. He would accept Japan's formal surrender aboard the USS Missouri. Those victories secured his place among history's most famous generals. But they never erased December 8th, 1941. Because every great military career carries a moment that refuses to disappear. For Napoleon, it was Waterloo. For Custer, the Little Bighorn. For Douglas MacArthur, it was the afternoon the skies over the Philippines fell silent. The aircraft burned. The runways disappeared beneath smoke. And an entire campaign changed course before most of the soldiers on the ground had even fired a shot. Perhaps the most haunting truth is this: wars are not always lost by the battles commanders fight. Sometimes they are lost in the brief, uncertain hours before the first battle truly begins. And those are the moments that history never stops questioning.